Hello and welcome to the Weekly Scroll podcast brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan.
And I'm the fell-handed.
Nice. And with us today we have a very special guest. We have Zachary Cox, also known as Jelly Muppet. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Just sitting down, ready to chat about some Cowboys. Do some. I'm excited to chat. I love it when people let me have ADHD-ridden rambles, which is what I was promised from this wonderful podcast.
Oh, absolutely! It's the only thing we do.
100%. I don't know how to do anything else, so I am definitely down for that. And we now have Jelly Muppet up on the screen for those corners of the internet that know you as Jelly Muppet. I guess first question: where did Jelly Muppet come from?
It's been my gamer tag in inverted commas for a really long time. I think I was first awarded it while playing Man vs. Machine in TF2 or something. So that would have been 15 years ago now, probably. I don't know. Yeah, and then Soul Muppet kind of sprung from that same name. A Muppet, of course, being a British term for a foolish person, and jelly being a special dessert we have. That is not, it's not the same as jam. A lot of Americans think that it's the jelly that you have with peanut butter is instead like a sort of gelatinous, wobbly thing that you eat with ice cream on the Queen's birthday. You know,
no, isn't what we call jelly what you guys call jam?
Yes. And then gelatin, I think you guys might call it jello, is what jello.
Yeah, jello, gelatin. Yeah.
So it's actually
we're off to an amazingly strong start already, by the way.
Yeah. We're talking so much about role playing. Which is
just vernacular across the pond. Let's just do that for an hour.
Yeah,
so
jelly what goes with peanut butter jelly sandwich,
yeah.
and then Muppet like the Jim Henson characters. Got it.
Right.
So, who are you? What is Soul Muppet?
Cool. So I, as the Jelly Muppet, run Soul Muppet, which is a RPG publishing company based in the United Kingdom. We make games in-house. You might have heard of us from stuff reviewed on this wonderful podcast before, such as Orbital Blues, Best Left Buried, Stygian Library, Gangs of Titan City. The big thing we've got on Kickstarter at the moment is Inevitable, which is a big, sad cowboy game. We also do a lot of publishing, and we have a really good web store that offers a lot of weird stuff you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. We do a lot of printing and publishing for people who can't afford to manage their own print runs or don't have access to capital or location-based stuff. One of the most important projects we did was something called LATAM Breakout a couple of years ago, where we basically gave a bunch of money to a bunch of RPG creators from Latin America and said, hey, that game you always wanted to make, but you couldn't afford to get all the art for you wanted? Go ahead and make the damn thing. So now there's a bunch of games as a result of that, and we do a bunch of publishing of interesting games that you might not be able to see otherwise in the kind of indie, old school, and story gamey spheres. And the games I write personally as a creator are to do with people trapped in cycles of inescapable cycles, to do with capitalism and mental health and depression and inevitability of circumstance. And then watching how people tell stories in those spaces, and it's usually beautiful and it's always sad. So, yeah. I also work as a producer at Rowan Rook and Deckard, where I've had my hands in stuff such as the Die RPG, which is coming out at the moment, and also stuff like Orkborg, and then some of the newer Heart and Spire stuff I've been lucky enough to be involved in. So,
cool.
Big full calendar of RPG adjacent stuff, basically.
Yeah. How did you get associated with Rowan Rook and Deckard too? Because I remember the announcement when that first came out. But what was the link that got you guys hooked up to that? You're not only doing Soul Muppet, which is a fantastic, successful company, but also working with Rowan Rook and Deckard, which is a fantastic, successful company here in the scene.
I've known Maz, Grant, and Chris for a really long time. We've been chatting variously. Maz is one of the smartest people in the back room of role-playing games, away from the kind of creative side, and is very good at project management and logistics and marketing and businessy stuff, which is something I wanted to get better at. So I wanted to work with Maz as much as I could, and also adored all of the games that Grant and Chris make. Heart and Spire have been psychically large to me for a very long time. And I was looking for some work. Maz was struggling to project manage all the RRD stuff while working also on a day job. So I kind of started working part-time with the view of helping them out with projects and allowing them to do more stuff. And it kind of was a fruitful partnership, and it worked from there. And that was like 2 years ago now. So just involvement in that, and particularly like a big focus of what I've been doing has been working on Die over the last couple of years and kind of working with Kieran, the fantastic Kieran Gill and Stephanie Hands on that gorgeous and beautiful book, and building a team to kind of bring that one to reality. So it's just worked from there, and we're just like, it's, running a RPG business is really hard, and the fact that I have 2 jobs makes it a little bit easier, and it means that when I'm working for Soul Muppet, I can spend more money on hiring creatives and doing exciting things rather than sitting in my attic and writing things, which is what I'd be doing if I was trying to make it full time. But
yeah, I'm very, very excited for Die. We've actually already read through it a little bit, but as soon as that physical hits here, we plan to bring that right to the show as well. I haven't physically held it, but I've seen pictures enough. The Kickstarter cover for that is so stunning, and the art is insane. So I guess jumping far ahead, especially since someone just asked about it in chat, how did the Die RPG come together from the graphic novel kind of comic book aspect of it from before to actually get to this physical thing? You said it took a couple of years, but how did that process kind of go?
Well, Kieran, so obviously I can't speak to all of this process because I was probably brought in about halfway through to sort of handle some of the production side of it, to do with editing and graphic design and layout, and kind of turning it from a big manuscript into the book you have in front of your hands now. And obviously that was a tremendous team effort involving a lot of editing from Grant and myself, and Maz's input on all that work, and also a whole team of fantastic freelancers, including Will Yobst, who was our main sort of editor, and Lone Archivist, who also did the graphic design for Orbital Blues that everyone loves, to kind of come in and spruce that up, along with a load of people on Kieran's side as well. But it always was a role-playing game. As soon as the first comic was, before the comic was written, Kieran had already had enough of it to run it, right? And the reason he kind of brought it to RD is that he wanted somebody with a bunch of polish and experience in making books from doing it, because there was a play test out on itch. You could get like the Die beta, I think it was called. I played it for the first time in 2018, I think. So like a really long time ago now, when I was first.
Wow. Yeah. Pre Into the World. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was obviously like well removed from Kieran. So when I heard I actually signed my NDA and got told that, well, I don't think I actually signed the NDA, but kind of said, okay, hush, this is what we're doing. We want you to help. I was like, yes, because that was the Die RPG was like my personal game of the year for 2018. I played like an enormously cathartic 5-game campaign of it, where I was playing like a Neo who was a writer, and like stuff from my novel was appearing in the world we were playing in, kind of. And that was super cathartic and helped me work for a bunch of stuff. So when I found out that it was something that was being made, I was so excited. But yeah, it always was a role-playing game alongside being a comic. And Kieran obviously wanted us to help bring it from this enormous manuscript, because like Kieran handed us like 250,000 words or something, and there's like only 100,000 in the final book. So we really dug through it and kind of pulled out the beautiful thing that people are in the UK and in Europe starting to hold in their hands. I've not had my copy yet, so there are customers getting it before I'll get mine. But when it's going to reach the US in the next couple of weeks, month or so, hopefully, and then it's a wonderful process, because anybody who hasn't read the Die comic should go and do so. But it's like a sort of a meta narrative about going into a fantasy kingdom that's based on the dreams and aspirations and emotional connections of all of these people from the real world, but you make this sort of fractured group of people, and then deciding about if fantasy is better than reality or not, which like touches so many beautiful themes and stories and emotions you're able to tell using that framework. And it was getting to be even involved in that process was such a joy, even if the project has been we've had some delays because of paper and printing and logistics and getting everything signed off. And in particular, you mentioned the production. You've seen some pictures of the fancy deluxe cover version with the slipcase and the black book cloth. Like that was a nightmare to put together from a design perspective. And Ryan Hughes did such a fantastic job of designing the darn thing. But beautiful piece of book engineering, and it's got a great game in it as well. So excited for more people to play it.
We're really excited to eventually go through it and talk about it on here because we already have it planned. So
yeah,
oh, right.
That's like you said, just can't wait to actually get that one in hand. And as you said before, you do a lot of emotional games. Don't need to say sad games, but one of the early games you did is one of my favorite games, Best Left Buried. Little bit different themes than Die, just a bit. But what was your impetus for getting that out? Like what inspired you to do Best Left Buried?
So I was the creator of Best Left Buried, and I worked with co-creator, and I worked with my wonderful friend Ben Brown, who was the artist for it at the time. I was playing a lot of old school games in that period, primarily like Maze Rats. What other stuff would it have been? Knave, a few stub bits like that. And I was getting really annoyed about how often my characters were dying. Dungeon Crawl Classics and stuff like that, bits of old school Ascent, whatever you fancy. My characters are getting killed, and it was really annoying me because I wanted to tell these characters. So when I was playing Maze Rats, the first thing I did is like, with new players who'd mainly played D&D and were like so happy to have got rid of all the rules, I said, okay, you're dying a bit too often. I gave every player a blue dice that was like, you can use this, re-roll it once per session, and then give it to me, you don't get it back. Right? It was basically a re-roll that was a physical component. And then I sort of asked myself, well, what does that actually mean? What does it do? And then kind of the themes of Best Left Buried kind of drew out of there. And first, it was meant to be a straight horror dungeon crawler, where, for those that aren't familiar, you're kind of professional adventurers going into a dungeon on behalf of a bank, basically, to do colonialism. And that wasn't very overt at the time. It was mainly just, this is a reason that the characters are all together, right? Rather than having everyone meet in a pub and then go somewhere. And kind of it was reflected in what I thought was cool about monsters, which is the creepiness, the unknowability, the fact that players shouldn't know how they work or what they do, and should instead be something that is still terrifying and eldritch to players. So I kind of wrote all these rules about creating your own monsters, having them be spooky, and then like came up for the reason for these blue dice to exist, in that it represented a resource that your character had, which is basically their strength of will and character, kind of a coagulation of stamina, sanity, and mana, right? So you could use it to cast spells, you could use it to get rerolls. Sometimes monsters removed it or attacked it if they were particularly terrifying. And the only way to get it back was accepting these fun role-playing consequences, which we called afflictions, which were like, your character is now scared of spiders, your character has claustrophobia, you want to set everything on fire. And so like it started you off as these professional adventurers, fresh-faced, and then they go into the dungeon and then they'd either be killed, which can happen occasionally. It's less lethal than like a sort of traditional old-school game because it has these story game-ish macro elements that we weaved in terms of the character progression being mainly about losing this sense of self over time and that being replaced with something the dungeon gives you. And that then I realized I'd written a game about like workers' rights and colonialism. And at the end I was like, oh, wait a second, that's what this is about. And people kept asking me in interviews like, oh, you wrote this very interesting game about labor struggles. And I'm like, did I? I thought it was a role-playing game about, that was just the reason the characters are there. But now going back to it now, it's super clear, like what is happening when you read that book. And I think that a lot of people have I think it's probably the most politicized dungeon crawling game that I can think of off the top of my head. But and some of the adventure content we've done since then has dealt with more of those themes, particularly the latest book we did, which went on Kickstarter back in October, I think, Throne of Avarice, which is like a colonial, it's set in your like London, Amsterdam place, and you basically, it's made very clear these kind of equivalents of all the banks and the East India Company and the consortiums and all these places, and kind of allowing you to engage with the themes of that. That was written and illustrated by the fantastic Brian Yaksha, who's done a bunch of stuff with Soul Muppet before, and obviously some incredible books of their own. But yeah, it kind of sprung from this frustration I had that my character kept dying, and I'd rather something interesting happen to them than death instead. So that when death did eventually happen, it was meaningful and it really did something to the campaign.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, there's a similar, even in the Orbital Blues, it's there's the Swan Song, which is like, is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Swan Song is the version where your character's about to die, and then you can say, yeah, I'm going to die here, and then you get to make something of your death. It's one of my
I definitely come from a place of like really appreciating, like I do enjoy the really burlesque dungeon crawly, like your characters just die. But like reading through like a lot of the games on Soul Muppet, it's like, oh, these are really like very like character, like narrative driven deaths that feel very epic and like the closing of a story. And I really like do appreciate that. So you guys create and publish games. When you're publishing games, like, is there something you look for that you're like, oh, this fits within like what we think of as like a Soul Muppet published game?
Yeah. So I know what's something that I write or something that I'm involved creatively wants to look like. I've talked about before, there's all these themes that are shared between Inevitable and Gangs of Titan City and Best Left Buried and Orbital Blues is like the four big things that we make. In terms of stuff I'm published, I'm mainly looking for just something interesting and different that hasn't been seen before. If it is a mechanic or an art style or a pitch or a genre, that's something I tend to go for. And also like just like innovation, essentially. Like I think there's a lot of like games that look very similar on there in the kind of breadth of what RPGs can be. And honestly, like, but a lot of the time it's the people. Like there's about 5 or 6 people now that whatever they want to print for the rest of their lives, I'll make 100 of them. Like, that's something I'm sort of growing to understand, is that I kind of want to build a network of people rather than a list of what this game really specifically should look like. Because like, it's not my job, I think, to be a tastemaker. It's my job to like help other people make games and have them exist in the world, right? And give access to market, to marketing, to the resources to do print runs and the understanding of logistics and running a web store. Because like a lot of people who make games don't want to get involved in running a publishing company, right? Whereas that's something that if I didn't want to run a publishing company, I should have made a lot of different decisions a very long time ago. And that's kind of what I'm doing now. All that stuff is basically all that stuff ultimately is me an excuse to write the stuff I'm really excited about and not have to work in an office where I type numbers into a screen. It's important to me that I can like help auteur voices, particularly where I can, with a focus on queer and like non-Western, non-Caucasian creators, and kind of push things in that direction. But yeah,
very cool.
Absolutely. And the Soul Muppet store, I was so excited because you guys have not only the UK store, but there's a US based store now, so we don't have to pay shipping to cross all the way over the ocean now. And you guys work with, I believe it's Floating Chair Club that does all of your distribution.
Yeah. So we've got a partner in the UK that does all of our rest of world and European and English, United Kingdom stuff specifically. But Floating Chair is like our person we work with in the States. And we basically, last year, we shut the store down. We moved everything out of my attic, which is where it was previously, and then opened up our kind of distributed fulfillment process that had these two sites. And because obviously a lot of the market is American, and it's where a lot of RPG fans are, particularly indie RPGs, weirdly. And because there's more people playing games, there's a wider access to people running stuff. And we wanted to make sure we could get something sorted there on the stateside. And critically, working in Floating Chair was fantastic because Sam's a great guy, runs an awesome store of his own, and kind of has given us the ability to do more stuff like that. We're kind of starting to branch out into Kickstarter fulfillment as well. We have a process currently that we've got off the ground and is working. And now, if this sounds interesting to you, you should find me on Twitter and message me. Where basically people at home, this is not these two specifically, but we've started offering like zero cost to create a Kickstarter fulfillment, where basically you ship us your books. We then put them on our web store. We send out discount codes to backers, your backers, that say, here's 100% off this. And then they go to the store, they check out, maybe they grab a copy of Orbital Blues as well, which is kind of how it works for me. And then we charge them shipping and they get their books. And it kind of is to grow the Soul Muppet store over time and make it more of a place where a broader array of RPGs exist rather than stuff that's just like printed and distributed by myself. So yeah, that's something we're doing going forwards, and setting up a really slick US operation was an important part of that. I'm super happy to work with Floating Chair on that one. Great zine store that you should check out if you get a chance.
Absolutely. And I've definitely gone through that process a couple of times. I think the most recent one I got was Gutter Punks from Christian Eichhorn. Yeah. I think was the last one that I think just actually got in a day or two ago. But it's great. Yeah, just go to the website, plug in the code, and it says if you also want one of these, check out this, and then
that's where we get
you get to go. Hey, listen, it's like all the candy at the checkout aisle in the gas station. You know, you're always going to grab a Snickers right there.
Gutter Punks is like the third project we've done for Christian now. We also did the reprint of, I've forgotten the name of the thing. It starts with an A. It's a book zine. And we also did his Bergen Crypt book as well. And we've got two new ones, Beyond Psi and Apocrypha, which are going to the printers tomorrow. So like soon. And then we've also got from his store a bunch of other stuff as well. We've kind of done loads of printing. So like expanding the range of Mortborg stuff we're able to offer by literally saying to one person, hey, we'll print things for you, because Christian's a prolific machine of RPG production.
Crazy.
That, able to make stuff.
Ryan's looking for. He's like, what do I have back there?
Well, the last one was a hardcover of Purgatory, because this is the Christian Icon section. Purgatory, there it is. That's the one.
That baby as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it's if Christian did it, I have it. It just is back there somewhere. And then we get to what is. Tell me if I'm completely wrong. It's been your most successful crowdfunding project for Soul Muppet. It's Orbital Blues.
Absolutely, yeah. No, Orbital Blues was the big one, yeah. Fantastic collaboration between myself and writer Sam Sleeney and artist Josh Clark. Those two guys kind of brought the idea to me and said, hey, we want to do Best Stuff Buried, and it be kind of about self-employment in space and being depressed and being a cowboy, and it kind of being a riff on your bebops, your cowboy bebops, specifically your Fireflies, I guess, as well. And also, I guess since it came out, the Mandalorian's kind of hit, and that's been a similar kind of space western.
I guess so, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so it's a game about being sad in space. You have a spaceship with a mortgage you're never going to pay off. Your characters are mechanically unable to become rich, and the way you level up is you choose something called a trouble at the start of the game, which is the reason you have depression. And then by being sad and role-playing towards that trouble, you get experience points. So it's sad for XP. And when you level up, you have to have an emotional conversation with someone, work out what's happening to you, or maybe just have a fight, and then get a bunch of mechanical bonuses if you do decide to fight somebody, and then level up and choose a new reason to be depressed. So it's the whole creative experience, and came with a wonderful soundtrack by my dear friend Chris Bissett that we put in a cassette, and a load of other, like Josh's art. If you've not already Googled Orbital Blues upon me explaining this, but you don't know what it is, go and don't click away from the podcast. Keep listening, but look it up, because it's like all the art is like photo kit bashed, illustrations and like
It's so fantastic. It's such a strong vibe.
posters for bands that don't exist, like NASA space stations covered in like roadside Americana 1960s advertising, neon lights on the side of your spaceship. Like it's a complete vibe fest, and like very like hits those themes of like stuff to do with mental health and poverty and these like disrupted cycles that you have to escape from and maybe you can't escape from, but is still like both a beautiful product and like a beautiful physical object, I mean, and also like a heart-wrenching game that you can get to play, that I'm such an enormous fan of. And we've got more adventures coming out for it. I got the PDF for a new one called Chega de Saudade today. Not sure I'm saying that right because my Portuguese isn't great. But we got a couple of adventures, and then there's a new Orbital Blues Kickstarter coming later this year that I don't know if I can actually talk about. Wait, I'm in charge. I need to check if my boss has signed off the NDA. No, yeah, we're doing a new book later this year. It's going to be all about spaceships.
Ooh, nice.
Doing more stuff with that, with a nice big chunky adventure in it, and then maybe a few other bits.
Well, I'm sure Ryan will back at the highest tier that will get the secret copy that only 5 people get, and I'll get the regular one. So
we'll get there. Yeah. Well, and talking about the art too. In addition, there's the Wayward Stars book, which is like just the art book, which is such a good fucking thing to add to that specific project, because the art, like the game mechanically, great, love it, but the vibes that the art and the layout and everything did the entire way through, even the GM screen with like the stuff laid out on it from top to bottom, like just exuded every theme from that game in such a masterful way. Like it's one of, I think, our favorite games, period, especially, specifically talking about like the vibes and the way that the game itself is written to reinforce the way that the system is played, really just keeps feeding back into itself in this loop that where you're just, sad all the time and you just keep going forward. It's fantastic.
That should just be, Soul Muppet's tagline should just be just like here to make you cry.
Sad
it's
all
just
the
at
time.
The top of the website, just here to make you cry.
I've yet to come up with a tagline, but that sounds like a good one. Josh did such tremendously fantastic work on the art, and Sam also did a bunch of really great art direction that kind of helped us from there and really set out the emotional feeling and stakes of the game when it was written, and like some of the graphic design stuff, which the game's also been really praised for, that kind of helps lean into Josh's art and amplifies that into the writing for the rest of the book. Is the great work of Lone Archivist as well, who I mentioned before, having done some work on Die with us too. It was such a, just like, I felt like we did one book like all together, and I felt like we worked on it for like quite a while, but like almost immediately felt like an incredibly well-oiled team of everybody knew what they were doing. The whole thing was just effortless to work on, and so happy to get it into the hands of players and hear people enjoying the game, and also looking at just being awed by the book and the design of it. Wayward Stars is definitely worth checking out. I think it's probably one of the most underappreciated books in the Soul Muppet catalog, in terms of the fact that that whole thing was Josh's work entirely. Sam and I didn't touch it. All of the writing, there's a bunch of like explanations about how the art is put together, with some like work in progress examples of where this images would come from when they were spliced together, and also like a bunch of new stuff you've not seen before, some cut content, and also like a bunch of lore that Josh wrote in it as well, because Josh has got like a background in RPG writing as well that I constantly forget about.
I was wondering when you were going to grab it.
And has written a bunch of Star Wars source books as well, that you should check out. The Andor source book that Tiny Woodsman did on Twitter. It's a real read, and it has a lot of the same kind of writing and graphic design clues as Orbital Blues is. And I think secretly, Orbital Blues is probably a quite good. If you're happy to ignore the Jedi bits, there's definitely a good Star Wars campaign done playing. I think it's your Andors and your Mandalorians pretty well, I reckon.
Yeah,
Well,
totally. I can see that.
the best Star Wars ignores all the Jedi bits. Star Wars without the Force is the best version of Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, the contrast between I forgot the name of the Mandalorian, the guy Din Djarin or whatever.
Yeah.
When he's like, enemy wizards, like early on, he's like they're sorcerers. When the Jedi are like mystical sorcerers, by the time he gets to like season 3 or whatever, he's fucking fighting people with his dark saber, and I'm like, yeah, no, this was better when it was just like dudes running around and Glop Shitto was there, and he was my favorite Star Wars. You know, yeah.
Lone Wolf and Cub version of Mandalorian was definitely where it was at. But yeah, this book, one of the things you said that I really loved when I first saw it was like how the art was put together, and those pieces where it talks about like where they sourced that and how it turned into be was just added even just another layer to how beautiful all of Orbital Blues was. It was so cool to see it actually turn into that. As you said, Wayward's, this is such an amazing book. Obviously get Orbital Blues, but if there is still a Wayward Stars out there, you should absolutely grab that. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're on sale in places. You can definitely get them on the Soul Muppet web store. Easy to find.
$25 for print and PDF on the Soul Muppet store. So
there you go. And then you guys did that 2020 2021. It's your most successful project on Kickstarter, but also was at the peak of, you know, the most recent apocalypse. Like, how was the process of actually like getting all of that done, working together, actually getting that sent out during all of that?
It was weird. I mean, production kind of stopped, and like a couple of us were furloughed at the time, so there was a nice opportunity to like really spend a lot of time working on it, which was great. It was the logistics was a challenge. Like the last couple of years have been obviously difficult for getting physical books to places. Shipping containers out of China are still nightmarish. Production is difficult. The price of paper is ballooning constantly. RPG books are like 30% more expensive to make than they were 3 years ago. And you're not kind of seeing that in the prices yet because inflation for everything else is still a bit weird and wage growth is stagnant. My economics background is coming out. But the fun thing is that me, Josh, and Sam were all in the same room for the first time back in like November. So like a year and 2 years after we started working, maybe more, because we started Big Book in 2020. So 2.5 years after we first started working together creatively, we actually met up in person because we were working on it during the pandemic. So it wasn't possible. But yeah, no, great. It was, like I said, a great process to work on. The guys were so talented and smart and did such a good job of it. And I'm kind of happy to see that people are playing it in the wild and excited to bring more books out on that line, because we certainly have lots of ideas. And I'm definitely not talking about the super secret fancy thing that's going to go over the top of the pledge, because that's going to remain under wraps until, you know, I'm definitely certain I can do it, but it's going to be silly. I'm excited. More Orbital Blues.
I can't wait for more Orbital Blues kickstarting, and then and going from your most successful project kickstarting it wise, Orbital Blues, to I believe is like the next most successful you guys have is Inevitable, which is a game that's out right now. So like we go from Sad Cowboys in Space to Arthurian Western Sad Cowboys. Talk about Inevitable, because this project looks absolutely stunning, and from what I've read, I think at least on Twitter, this is something that you've been working on for quite a while.
Oh yeah, so the first thing I ever did creatively was read Stephen King's The Dark Tower, and then decide I was going to make I was going to run a D&D adventure set in a sort of big desert. And then my players didn't want to play it, and we decided to play, I think it was like SLA Industries or something instead. And I was like, no, why did I let you choose? Why should I just made you run the thing I wanted? So I wrote a novel. I spent a year writing a novel after I finished university set in this setting. And this would have been in 2017 now, so 6 years ago I wrote this thing. And so the pitch for the game is that you guys are knights and wizards and priests and gunslingers in service to the king of myth. Myth is the last great civilization inside this big desert called the Barren. And the world is shrinking in on you. The apocalypse is oncoming, and the world is beginning to unravel. In the game, the prophets, the kind of the people who can tell the future, who have perfect foresight of what is coming, have said, Myth will be destroyed, your city will burn, everyone who does not betray the king will die. And that prophecy, once it's told, is inevitable, which is where the name of the game comes from. Your characters are basically trying to stop the apocalypse, which means running around this desert, dealing with all of these gunslinging wizards and enormous dragons and cannibal hordes and weird magical artifacts and rebels and traitors, of people who've forsaken the king and decided to stake their own claim upon the kingdom. And watching that happen, your characters then have to stop it while knowing they're going to fail. And it kind of hits a lot of these Arthurian notes of like impossible quests, trying to do the best you can, like virtue being called into question, because like one of the big actions your characters have to decide is how much of your like knighthood and chivalry are you going to try to preserve in this apocalypse? Because like if you try to do everything perfectly and be like a good knight, you are going to fail. You're going to have to break some rules to win. So it's about like being in this impossible situation where you know you're going to fail and deciding what the mythology of your setting is going to be and how things are going to end, and sort of making the stories by which your civilization will be remembered. So it hits a lot of huge vibes in terms of like emotional notes, and also like gorgeous aesthetics that you will mainly see are thanks to the incredible work of Claire Arts, who you can find on the social medias in various forms. These kind of like glorious, washed out sepia deserts with these faded remnants of civilization and these sort of this glowing, beautiful magic that comes from the two twin moons of the setting you can see in a bunch of the art. And all of the imagery and the product design and everything that we've done has kind of been linking upon that art. It's the first A4 book Soul Muppet is going to make. It's much more of a story game than some of the stuff we've written before. If you sound like this thing interests you, not only is there a Kickstarter, there's also a 3 quick start that you can grab. That's kind of a folding beak scene. If you've come across one of those before, you can print out, use digitally, and grab that for free on the Soul Muppet web store. It's got about 2 to 3 sessions worth of stuff in it, and also you can get a view for the rules and make some characters and have a good time doing that one. But yeah, that's the game in short. But it's, for me, what part of the big shift of how it appeared creatively is that I've written this novel and realized, oh my God, novels take a long time to write. And also, no one buys them. And I don't want to work here forever. So I started making these role-playing games because Best Left Buried was kind of being developed alongside it and got released in like 2018, 19. And then Soul Muppet has grown since then. And in the background, I've been thinking, well, how do I do the role-playing game for this setting that's been in my head for so long? Because like all of the thematic elements that appear in stuff like Best Left Buried, a lot of that is like borrowed from the fantasy imagery of Inevitable. So, for example, you announced yourself earlier as the Fell-Handed, right? That's one of the wizard titles from Heroic Zine, one of the names for the wizards. That's an Inevitable character. He's a dark wizard who sacrifices his hand to a demon, and then instead has this black of obsidian coming out of his arm. And he's one of the bad guys, one of the evil tower wizards inside the inside one of the dooms, which is called the Sky Castle. And there's loads of imagery and stuff borrowed from there. A lot of those titles are stolen. Like the concept of a godsman, which is one of the classes in Best Left Buried,
right,
is an Inevitable class as well. And that's borrowed from Best Left Buried rather than the other way. Sorry, Best Left Buried borrows it from Inevitable rather than the other way around. Because for ages I've been thinking about how to make this thing possible and like approach it with speaking bluntly, like a budget with which I'm willing to make the thing that has been rattling around in my head for like 6 years appear and is like what I think about when I close my eyes, because all the themes around it to do with chivalry and kind of acting in a situation where you know you're going to lose and you know you're going to fail and it's a no-win scenario, and just like trying to deal with that is like what I've actually been writing games about for all this time. Because the gimmick of the book is that the characters in it, the kind of protagonists and the 3 or 4 kind of like main characters in his party of adventurers, knew how they were going to die and were kind of reacting to that emotionally and kind of, you know, you're going to die here. Do I reject that possibility? Do I embrace it? Just get on with it? Am I going to, like, if I know I'm going to die here, do I just try to get myself killed elsewhere because I don't want to die here? Like, dealing with the fact that things are happening. And like in a role-playing game, unless it's a super tight and scripted story game, it's very difficult to precisely foretell the end of characters because storytelling is emergent in a game, right? Whereas if what we're deciding is the thing that we know is going to happen is, instead of people, it's a place, it's a thing, it's an idea that we know will be destroyed, it's then a case of like finding out what that story looks like, which has many more options and is not scripted. And yeah, if you play the whole thing, you can spend 2 years destroying our Camelot Gilead proxy and play through all of this wizard stuff. And the playtest campaign we ran went for about 12 months and did half of the content in the book. Did 3 of the 6 dooms, which are like the potential big bad evil guys that could destroy me, right? And it was amazing. It went really well. And then we kind of decided to play something else on a Wednesday night because it was getting real heavy. It was getting tough.
Yeah, getting a little emotional.
Imagine. Yeah.
So this is like a very Pinnacle U game.
This is like, so on like Orbital Blues, I was a co-creator and I did some writing, but mainly my job there was as a project manager and kind of helping other people get the best out of them. I wrote some bits of the mechanics, like for example, the troubles and the spaceship combat were like the main things that my handlers fell upon. Whereas this book is like entirely through written by me. No one else touched it. I mean, there's been some bits of collaboration. I've had some help from my friends, but like I wrote 95% of this manuscript, and it is the thing that has been lurking around in the back of my head since I wrote that book 6 years ago. I'm working out how I can turn that into something that people are going to enjoy. And so the ideas of it and the themes, it's like, I think it will be the biggest thing I write for a really long time. And I think after this, I'm probably going to go back to mainly project managing and kind of working with other people, because these games, they take a long time to write for me because I get a couple of hours a week to do writing. So writing a 60, 70,000 word book is like tremendously difficult for me. And, you know, I think this will be me for a while. I've got some more stuff planned in the future that I want to write, but yeah, this is like this isn't Soul Muppet's game. This is like my game, removing myself away from, and it is like a very Soul Muppet-esque game, and it exemplifies all the things that I think are the themes of what our games look like.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting that this is one of the first things that you did, and then when you look at what Soul Muppet did after that, and in retrospect, how a lot of it seems to have been inspired by that, to go from like that at the beginning to now getting it afterwards is such a it's interesting to see the entire catalog of Soul Muppet and then hear about, you know, your history with this game specifically. And it's awesome that we've hit this point now where it can get put out. One quick question I had. So the logo for the game and the colors of the dice and all that, is that the 2 moons?
Yeah. And so those are the 2 moons together. So I think you might be able to see on the screen right now. Look, it's gone away now. It's the 2 moons, which are called Constance and Ezra, I think. Well, I don't think I know. That's what they're called. One of them is orange, one of them is green. They are where like magic and prophecy comes from. And also in that design, they are specifically the ends of bullets from revolvers. So one of the big things in the setting is that you can get like muskets or fire tubes, we call them. But if you have a fancy gun, it is made by a wizard. And so they scream, they roar, they shoot magic light at people. They're all named with pretentious names by wizards with their pointy hats up their asses. So, you know, and the cover for the book. Oh, yeah. And they also have like weird magic bullets that are made from very specific relic materials. So you'll have a wizard that's like from the bullets made from the bones of a dragon, or like gunpowder made from the powdered bricks of a rival's castle, right? Or like stuff involving like blood or viscera or tears or moonlight or all these kind of like weird. We got loads of tables in the book for generating a magic gun. And then the other thing that the logo is they are the bases of bullets. They're like the rings of a bullet that gets fired from one of these magic handguns. And one of the silly things that you can buy if you back the Kickstarter is that we asked I don't know if you guys saw the dice on the die project that were like the magic glass ones that have magic inside them. They were made by our incredible friends at Level Up Dice. And I said to them, hey guys, I need some dice for this new game. What can you do? So that we've got what dices that are the moons. They were a no-brainer. We got some resin dice as well if you don't want to spend like 10 quid on a single D6. And the final thing I said, could we get some dice that look like bullets?
Yeah.
So what we've got is a set of, I think they're like 60 caliber bullets because they're like 15 millimeters across, maybe 65 actually, which is like, and they're about 3 centimeters long. So they're the type of bullets that you would specifically use in the real world for shooting like rhinos or elephants or something. And they're made of brass, and we scratched pips in them. And they are use something you can, and if you really want to spend stupid money, which I wouldn't recommend, frankly, no person needs this many dice. You can buy a full set of 6 wizard bullet dice.
Mm-hmm.
We will then put in some kind of box or a cylinder, possibly. We're working it out, but it's going to be silly. And that's what I basically, this whole bit of the project has just been like, what fun stuff can we offer that people might enjoy? And like just make shit that makes me gleefully joyful as the publisher, and then other people might like it as well. That's like what I tend to shoot for. If somebody's capable of making me excited, I sure as hell know that the Soul Muppet enjoyers out there will enjoy it as well. So
yeah, I can't name a single person who's definitely gonna jump on that at all. I don't know anyone. So
no, I didn't get the dice set and the bullet dice at all. I didn't go back and add that as soon as it dropped as an add-on. Not at all, you know. And like I said, and all 3 covers already. So that this is definitely an expensive backing here on Kickstarter. I mean, I highly. I mean, you know, obviously we're going to go over this one when it eventually comes out. But this project sounds absolutely amazing. Like I said,
yeah.
Huge fans of Soul Muppet. We've done a bunch of the games here on the show. The themes that kind of like the through line through all the stuff that you guys put out is absolutely fantastic. And this sounds like, I guess, both a prequel and culmination of a lot of the things that you guys have done. And it just seems like an absolutely amazing project. And I'm glad. I love when there's like little extra added stuff at the end. I mean, clearly I have to get like, you know, every version of everything that you guys do, but you know, I'm glad that there's 3 covers and bullet dice and all this stuff. You know, the vibes that Soul Muppet puts out with their games are fantastic. And when you can get something like Orbital Blues that has the art book, you can get the tape with the soundtrack for it, and with this you can get bullet dice with your sad, you know, Western Arthurian character. I mean, it's just fantastic to have all of the things that really make you dive into the style of play that was kind of written into the book that you're hoping to have people experience. So all of those things just continue to add on to it. And Soul Muppet, just as a publisher and as a writer, has been it's been a joy to follow you guys for quite a while with all the stuff that you put out. It's really fantastic content.
Thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I really hope this Kickstarter makes, you know.
Yeah, it's only
It's
I don't know, like
only
3 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it was
Yeah.
important for me that we like obviously I don't like all that stuff where it's like, oh, we're like 7,000% funded. I'm like, oh, come on, man, that's not how much the book actually costs for you to make it. Like, make a realistic goal there rather than so you can hit it in 25 minutes. You know, so that's what we did. Like the last couple projects we've done have been like actually what it cost us to make the books as the start line, because I think it's dishonest to do anything less. And you know, maybe that's resulted in some projects that maybe didn't fund on day one like I wanted, but it's important that you know. But yeah, this one's been such a success. I'm so happy for the support of all of the all the fans out there and all the people enjoying all the Western stuff. And it's just been like the same things kind of happened with Orbital Blues, where like and I think Gangs of Titan City as well. A couple of people are just like, yeah, this was made, this was carved like a fucking dart to hit exactly personally me because of the fact that I try to make games that are like drenched with vibes. Like the whole thing just comes off there, and that is something you can see in Orbital Blues and Best Left Buried and Gangs of Titan City and Inevitable and all the other stuff we do, basically.
Yeah. And for those that haven't read the Kickstarter yet for Inevitable, are there, you know, you guys love 2d6s, which, listen, I'm a huge fan. It's my favorite dice to roll. Is Inevitable a lot like the other games that you have written on Soul Muppet? So if people have played them before, they'll be similar, or is it a completely different system that you guys put together for this?
I tried writing it using like the Best Left Buried Orbital Blues energy, but I just couldn't get it to hit. So it's kind of a slightly different structure. It does still use D6 because like I'm a really strong believer in D6 based games. I feel like games should use the dice that people have at home, and having dice should be dice should be something cool you can get if you want to like support the creator and do something cool, rather than like to play this game you need like 10 special dice with all the different facings on the pips. Like that's all you need, a D13 or whatever. I want people to be able to play this thing using their Monopoly dice they have at home, right? Worst comes to worst if that's what you got a hang of. The engine is like really different in that like we're not trying to tell that kind of story. It's not about. It works on a bigger scale as well, right? Because when you're playing Orbital Blues and Best Left Buried, the most complicated thing you're going to do is a combat, right? Where your characters are in this kind of desperate situation where with guns or knives or swords in a tunnel or on a spaceship or in a fucking airlock, I don't know. You have this really tense, terse situation by everything by the second matters. But the characters Inevitable are like tiers more powerful than anything that would happen in Best Left Buried Orbital Blues, right?
Okay.
Your most powerful like narrative. I mean, within the setting, like the Inevitable characters, which don't get stronger, they kind of actually get worse as time goes on because their reputation change, would like wipe the floor with anything but an absolute top tier Best Left Buried character. You know, you need like 7 or 8 advancements before you can do the equivalent stuff. And so it needed a completely different engine because we're not telling a story about like guys in tunnels with knives. We're telling a story about like the heroes of civilizations trying to stop inevitable apocalypses against like godlike forces. So it is actually a completely different engine. There's 2 main types of role you can do. And if you kind of want to know a bit more about this mechanics, I would recommend checking out the Kickstarter if you feel like it's something you can handle. They aim to be really simple, and like we tend to abstract scenes to single dice rolls rather than going blow by blow in kind of combats or scenarios. In a challenge, which is kind of so to go through how it works in kind of total. Each session or so is made of something we call a quest, right? Which is you want to go somewhere, you want to do something, you want to stop this person, you want to meet this or find this thing or do an objective. And that has a threat score, and you're trying to gather these things called showdown tokens, which are used in the final encounter of the quest, known as a showdown. The way you get these tokens is that when something dangerous happens or something that the outcome is in question, you roll something called a challenge, where you basically assemble a D6 dice pool by running down a list of questions. If you're kind of like a seasoned RPG player, this probably looks most like a Blades in the Dark engagement role, if you come across that before, where we ask a couple of questions about the situation. But it's to do with the character, the forces against them, and then some of their equipments and what we call reputations, which is a big part of the inevitable character creation. Your character basically doesn't have any stats associated with them. They have 3 words, which are going to be something like, your character might be dashing, gracious, and skilled, right? And those are words called reputations that you can then apply to a test when you take it, right? And that's how you get your dice. And those things change over play as your characters because these aren't actually like a measure of what your character does physically. It's more about what they're known for and how people talk about them in the stories, what their reputation at court or around like your dusty campfires where they trade songs and stories. Because there's a lot of bards in the setting, tale weavers we call them, because it's all about legends, right? And it's how the character is going to be remembered. And they change over time, these reputations, as they get eroded and things happen in play that cause those reputations to move about. Once you've done a couple of these challenges and kind of dealt with the consequences of what happens, you kind of get to the end of your episode, which is the quest, right? And then you have a climactic showdown, we call it, against whatever the thing that stopped you from achieving that quest is. This might be a gunfight, it might be a debate, it might be a battle, it might be a test of strength or something. But what is then the case is that one character kind of enters a scene and says, I'm leading this showdown. And then dramatic music plays, tumbleweeds fly across the screen, and, people, doff their caps to block out the sunlight, whatever happens. It gets very Western. And then you basically then enter a negotiation with your GM about what it is that you are prepared to lose while facing this enemy. And then you negotiate a consequence. And the bigger consequence you are prepared to suffer while in this inevitable consequence, which we know by force of prophecy will occur to you, the bigger bonus you get on this check. And then you roll a dice, you kind of are comparing this against a couple numbers of meta currencies you basically earned by doing all these challenges previously during the session. And that brings it down to one incredibly climactic dice roll where you either soar past the difficulty and just complete it. Doesn't happen very often. You meet the consequences and you meet the kind of rating you need, and then something bad happens along the to your character as this thing happens, or you fail completely, and then that consequence happens and you have to do the same thing again, but probably have to offer something bigger because you need more bonuses, right? So you end up with these disaster scenarios where you're facing off against these incredibly powerful climactic enemies, and kind of, now I've built this structure for Inevitable, I'm now looking at other stories I could use this engine to tell that are like less Arthurian Western themed, because it feels like a very potent storytelling method of kind of building up to these, big, ridiculous battles or scenarios or debates at the end of a thing. And then a campaign, like one of these 6 dooms is like a series of quests where each one of the showdowns at the end of the session is kind of like the challenge in the smaller quest. And that gets you some bonuses that you then use in a final confrontation against that doom. And then you do between 1 and 6 of them over the course of the campaign. And those little quests act as challenges in the bigger things. So it's kind of like a sort of concertinaed collection of quests and big showdowns against dramatic and fearsome enemies. And so it's a very different engine to the kind of stuff we've made before. In the same way that Gangs of Titan, completely cinematic. Yeah. In the same way that Gangs of Titan City, which you guys will be talking about in a bit, has like a very different engine to Orbital Blues and Best Left Buried. I kind of knew that it needed a different thing. It was telling a very different type of story. It didn't make sense for the same levers to be there. Nick tried writing it as a Best Left Buried like game using the engine, and we just said no, it doesn't work, because like, to me, the brand of Soul Muppet is nothing to do with how many d6s it uses and what the 3 stats are and the fact that grip or vigor or whatever is an interesting mechanic. It's thematic, right? It's how the thing feels to look at and read and play, rather than trying to hamstring a certain engine into a different license we've managed to acquire. Not trying to throw names at other RPG publishers, but it's very much about me understanding that in the same way that not every RRD game is something in the Resistance engine, like Heart and Spire need different things, and they're willing to adapt those games to make them sense. So when the new book that I'm definitely not allowed to talk about in that series appears, that will use the same engine but done a different way versus other things that just look completely different, because I don't want to let the way a game is played or written be like subscribed to how many D6 the game used before,
Right. Yeah, but it sounds like Inevitable is, Gangs of Titan City is different than Best Left Buried, but it sounds like Inevitable is like degrees different as opposed to the other engines, because the Best Left Buried and Orbital Blues have the 2d6, but it's a little bit different. It's not like a mixed success. Gangs of Titan City is more of like the post PBTA mixed success. Inevitable seems much more like Hunter said, like climactic, and has these like I imagine scenes from a show as you're talking that. Like, I feel like I need to go on Spotify and find somebody that made like medieval Western music. There has to be some type of like spaghetti Western, but with like some type of flute going in it or something. Like, there has to be somewhere. So
I'm looking at the chat and I'm seeing somebody ask, we got to know Zach's favorite Dark Tower novel. This is a Wizard and Glass game, if you know your Dark Towers. The fourth one where they have the flashback and they go back to Mace. That's the one that this book specifically is like dealing with in the kind of the world of like the Dark Tower up to the Battle of Jericho Hill. And like Jericho Hill is where this campaign would end. And then maybe eventually I'll write a role-playing game about playing Survivors of the Apocalypse, and that would be maybe more Dark Tower gunslingery. But at the moment, yeah, this is a Wizard and Glass RPG. But my favorite book is The Wasteland. No, is it? They're all good. I also did I don't know how Dark Tower pilled you guys are, but there's also a Song of Susanna Easter egg in it now, where I wrote myself into Inevitable because I got retweeted too many times on Twitter. While I was drunk, I agreed to do it. And
perfect.
Jelly Muppet is now somewhere within the Inevitable book.
That's very funny.
Yeah, I was definitely going to ask about that. The 250 retweets, and now you're in your own book that you wrote and turned into a game. That's awesome. Is everybody that gets the core book going to find you at some point in there, or is this like a secret hidden thing?
No. I mean, I've got to honor my pledges. It's in there. Specifically, kind of the way it looks. I think I can announce this. I'm in charge. There's like a sort of suggestion that the only way to save the world is to actually. There's two other ways that I won't spoil because they are quite meta. But there's an argument in it that like if your cowboys from this world were to reach the planet Earth and convince me, Zachary Cox, to not make it such a tragic ending that you can't win, then like maybe it would be possible to save your kingdom. It wouldn't be such a thematic certainty that your civilization is going to be destroyed.
So just a smidge meta. Just a smidge meta.
No, it's very meta. It's not a smidge meta. I don't think it's as egregious as the Stephen King one, which I did enjoy, but felt a bit on the nose at the time. I've grown to enjoy it more with age. I think that Stephen King did a good job of like he didn't paint himself as like a good protagonist guy. I think he just was a piece of shit and kind of talked himself down a bit, and then someone had to make sure he didn't get assassinated by a van driver who was sent by a demon. Anyway, spoilers. Sorry, spoilers. Obviously, all spoilers.
So don't listen to the last 5 minutes, guys. But listen, if I lived near you, and you got a little drunk, one night I would absolutely dress up like an Arthurian Western cowboy and knock on the door and be like, "Hey, can you not do that?" And just see if it would sink in.
My concern is that someone at Gen Con is going to like appear dressed as a wizard and like tell me that I need to save somebody. I'm like, my dude, give it a break. I'm working right now. Can you, but it'll be
show up in a duster, that cowboy hat, and a magic 6-shooter and be like, listen,
So yeah, super excited for this project. There's still 6 days left on the project. So if you're listening to this now and you haven't backed it, how fucking dare you? But also in a couple of days on YouTube and on the podcast, when you get a chance to hear this, you definitely want to go to Inevitable, a doomed Arthurian Western RPG. Like I said, if you're a fan of Soul Muppet at all, it sounds like a lot of things Soul Muppet has already done has been inspired by this, or you'll see a lot of at least vibe adjacent stuff in here, and can't wait for what else. What's the next thing you're gonna put Sad Cowboys in?
I don't know now. I think I've hit all the things I can put Sad Cowboys in. I've got some plans that are like still sad but not cowboy, that maybe I'll tell you about when we're not on a live stream, because I don't want to publicly announce anything. But yeah, I think the cowboy arc is probably done for a bit, and maybe in a couple of years we'll come back and do some more stuff. But more Orbital Blues is coming. There'll be Orbital Blues for as long as Josh and Sam are excited about making it, and I will continue to be jazzed to make more books. Literally jazzed. But yeah, that's that, I think. I've given you enough spoilers of things I shouldn't announce. Rather than
hey, listen, that's great when someone comes on the show and is like, "Am I allowed to say this?" Fuck it, let me just say it, and then we get to, you heard it here, folks. We get to do those bits, you know. But aside from, you know, not aside from, like, we have Inevitable, we have more Orbital Blues coming, Constant, Best Left Buried coming out. I mean, Throne of Avarice, is that on my shelf yet? No, I have the PDF
today, I think, so it should be with you in about a month or maybe 6 weeks, hopefully.
Fantastic, yeah.
But the PDF is out.
Yeah, no, I definitely have that already. We've definitely gone through that already. I mean, Brian Yoksha does some fantastic work, fantastic art. I mean, their vibe is so well suited to Best Left Buried that content from them for that, it just feels like it should be there. So
yeah, I mean, with Throne of Avarice, I wrote the Best Left Buried setting like quite a long time ago. I kind of did the first edition version, and then Brian wrote an adventure for us called Spoils of the Gorgon Coast, and I was like, oh, cool, Brian's better than me than writing the setting than I am. And then so I hired Brian to basically redo the core setting in the core book, and then it came out and it was much more tightly themed and cohesive, and it was actually about the stuff I wrote about by accident. So obviously working with on Throne of Avarice was just a joy. It's kind of about Calmin and the sort of instruments of colonialism, capitalism that it was affected by. And then there was kind of this question about Ben doing art for it. We had a couple of Best Left Buried projects at the time, that are kind of on sleep at the moment. And then Brian volunteered to art it themselves, and I was like, "You can do what? This is what you're happy to do." So that whole book is like a through composed piece by Brian at this point, with the exception of the editing by Panther Zamblum and Dove Taylor, and the wonderful layout of Dice Shugars. They are an incredible graphic designer who also did work on Gangs of Time City. So yeah, that's a gorgeous through composed piece of book by Brian that I'm such a fan of. Yeah, that will be with people soon, I hope.
Very excited to get that. I mean, it's nice. I feel like every couple of months we're just getting more Soul Muppet, because we got, oh god, I literally just saw it and read it, and why am I blanking on the name of it? The Lost and the Jammed just got here, yeah, just a little bit ago. I mean, we're gonna get Throne of Avarice, and we're gonna get Orbital Blue stuff. I mean, it's nice to always constantly have a stream of great content coming from Soul Muppet, and you know, Rowan Rook and Deckard can't wait for Die to get here as well. So there's a lot of content coming out from that you have your hands all over, you know, this year and going into next. So it'll be great to see that as those continue to come out. And again, if you are listening to this now, go check out Inevitable, back it, get the bullet dice, get all of that stuff. It's one of those things, when I backed the Orbital Blues Kickstarter, I was in this like, maybe I should save money phase, so I just got the regular book and then spent like months regretting that I didn't get the night cover and the tape, and then you guys finally dropped that, and I was able to snatch all that up. So don't regret not getting the bullet dice, I'll say that. Yeah. So Inevitable is on Kickstarter. Where can people find the rest of your stuff? Like your stores, the itch, like cool. where can people find all your content?
You can find us at Soul Muppet on Instagram and at Soul Muppet RPG on Twitter. I am the Jelly Muppet, which is, there's no underscores in that, I don't believe, on most places. The best place to find Soul Muppet stuff is on soulmuppet-store.co.uk. If you go to com, it will also get you there. We've got dozens and dozens of role-playing games. Literally, we're going to a convention next month, and I'm packing 87 different books that are going to have to go on that table. And that is no less than about
a big table
of what we actually, it's like 2.5 tables. It's a big, we go to UK Games Expo and you'll see us there and at Dragon Meet as well. And maybe some conventions in the US at some point if we're lucky, but that's not something we can do at the moment, sadly, because getting over to the States for a con is so expensive. The good news about that is that, so Soul Muppet -store.co.uk is the place to buy stuff. Good US shipping. There is a Discord and a mailing list you can find there. You are able to get free quick starts of all the things that I've talked about. There is a quick start for Orbital Blues. There is one for Best Left Buried. There is one for Gangs of Titan City. There is one for Inevitable. You can also get free adventures for, the Orbital Blues quick start comes with one already. And the Best Left Buried one has, you can, by downloading our mailing list, you can get free adventures and stuff. And on that mailing list is, you get a discount every month for something cool that we are doing that we want to get people's hands on. And just come and chat with us. There's a Discord server linked up on there as well, which is like the place I am most active upon the internet. But yeah, it's all good. RPGs happening constantly, and you can find Roanoke and Deckard at rrdgames.com, I believe, and all the wonderful stuff that happens there, including Die and Heart and Spire and all the one pages and stuff. And the new thing that is happening that I think has been announced but is coming soon is called Eat the Reich, which is our summer Kickstarter project where you play vampires working for the Allies who are trying to drink Nazi blood in 1943 Paris. Which is some real good art for that one. When it comes out, you should be able to get your eyes on that soon. That's Eat the Reich.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
Again, thank you for making stuff, between all of the stuff we're talking about with Soul Muppet, and then we haven't got to go over Spire or Heart yet on the show, but we definitely have plans to do that. But a vampire Nazi killing game sounds fucking amazing, and I feel like it's probably
you had me at killing Nazis.
It's a good time for that right now. I think it's a good idea to punch a Nazi in the face every now and then. But listen, Zach, Jelly Muppet, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I said, we've been big fans of Soul Muppet for a long time. We've done a bunch of the games here. It's really nice to finally get a chance to talk to you, especially prior to Inevitable, which seems to kind of be the seed for a lot of the stuff you've done. So it's really been fantastic talking to you, and just really appreciate you making what you make and coming here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Hey, no, yeah.
You guys have let me talk for too long, as always happens.
There we go. So, listen, if you're in the chat, hang out. We're going to go over Gangs of Titan City here in just a minute. And if you're listening on YouTube or the podcast, we're probably going to cut this into 2 episodes. So just click the next episode, and we will be back shortly. So again, Zach, thank you so much, and we'll be right back.